Hi, I'm Dr. Dani Rabwin with Ready Vet Go, the podcast. I am so excited for our guest, Dr. G, today. So let's dive in.
So sitting there, I was looking at all these burnout pieces, and I'm like, this isn't deep enough. Like, they're not giving us true reasons.
Yeah.
They're just saying, yeah, well, we did a qualitative study where we sit down and interviewed people and, stuff like that. And I'm like, there's got to be more to this. Like,
Right.
And then that's where my dissertation came in, because at first I was going to look at the burnout piece of private versus corporately owned practices. I was told, don't do that. It won't do anything. And then another one of my mentors, Dr. Peter Weinstein, me and him always started talking, and we always would talk, but I really started talking intellectually about this to him. And he's like, why don't we look at how people are being accepted? So I'm like,
Accepted into veterinary school?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm like, okay. So I came up, there's a theory called attrition. It's called attraction, selection, attrition theory.
Okay.
And what this theory says is like attracts like, right?
Yeah.
So you get this very big homogeneous population of people.
Yep.
Well, burnout hasn't changed in 12 years, 15 years, 20 years. If anything, it's gotten worse.
Yeah.
Well, we're accepting the same type of student over and over and over and over. When you and I got accepted, it was GPA, GRE.
Yep.
Or it was the VCAT for Illinois. Thank goodness there's the VCAT, because I couldn't do the GRE.
It was not fun.
No, it's not fun. Like, I don't know why synonyms really should count for getting into vet school.
Right.
So then we're looking at the whole, like, are we accepting the smartest, right? And then you go down and even break it down further, because they don't use GRE anymore. They look at GPA. There are veterinary schools that accept students with zero experience, 0 hours in a clinic.
Yep.
On average, it's 100 hours, 2.5 weeks in a veterinary setting.
Wow. Yeah.
Where are you in the veterinary clinic? What are you allowed to do in the veterinary clinic? Are you even allowed to talk to people?
Yeah.
I don't think that works.
Yeah.
And then the last thing is there are veterinary schools that accept people without interviews or interview optional. How do you know what you're getting in?
Yeah.
You don't know what you're getting in.
Yeah.
So that's where the whole emotional intelligence piece came in, because Peter and I sat back and were like, are we accepting on IQ and not EQ?
And so you feel like the schools really are accepting more based on IQ, because we're like focusing on test scores and GPA and less on things you might learn in an interview or how many hours somebody's worked in a veterinary clinic.
Right. And I'm not saying that's bad, right?
Yeah.
But the emotional demands of our profession are through the roof.
Yeah.
And that's where Ready Vet Go is such a huge piece, because you're able to sit down and say, okay, let's talk about how do we regulate our emotions? How do we communicate to this client? How do we call this client on the phone?
Right.
How do you build boundaries?
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Because as an early career vet, you're like, oh, I got to build myself up. Here's my phone number. Here's my personal email.
Yeah.
Here's this, here's that. What can I do for you?
That's
you know?
right. Yeah,
oh,
we
you're
talk
going to
about
be an hour and
boundaries
a
a
half late, right? I'll stay till 7 p.m.
Right. Yeah.
And that's where a very formal mentorship program can work so great with an informal mentorship program, if they even have that in their practice.
Exactly. Yeah, not everybody has the opportunity to have that.
Right.
That's why I built Ready Vet Go, was to help bridge some of these gaps and to fill in this need, because suddenly people find themselves having graduated from veterinary school with tons of medical knowledge, but missing the pieces that allow them to connect with clients, get buy-in for treatment plans, be efficient, go home on time. And, that's where, people find that they need extra support. I'm so curious about, like, how you're going about collecting this information. Like, I'm just wondering, when you're talking about, like, some schools don't require interviews and don't require any
it's all
experience. But then, like, I've been on, TikTok recently, and acceptance letters are coming in, and pre-vet students are posting. It's just like all online. Everybody's posting what schools they got into or what schools they got rejected from, and they're all posting their stats. And these pre-vet students have hours and hours. I mean, the competition is so high. And so watching even like so many hours of like real life work experience and multiple rejections, but those also are students who are getting accepted into some of these schools. I'm just wondering, like, is there any data right now about burnout or well-being among early career veterinarians who went to schools that did require hours in the clinic?
I will be able to tell in a year.
That's what you're looking at.
That's what I'm looking at. So I'm looking at realistic career preview, which is basically a basic questionnaire, and it's going to be like, how many hours did you put in before? How many do you do that? How much did you do? Because how many people do you know that you're like, man, they've been an employee of mine forever, and they would be a phenomenal veterinarian?
I wrote a letter multiple years in a row for somebody who needed to have been and should have been a veterinarian, and is instead
because they
working.
had a 3-2.
Yeah.
Right? And then that's the thing. So I bring up this argument because this isn't part of my study, but if you just select people who have great grades, you're also selecting perfectionists.
Yeah.
And perfectionism is a killer when it comes to medicine in general, but especially veterinary medicine.
Yes.
Because these kids graduated with a 4.0, they got into this vet school, they were at the top of their class in their vet school, they were perfect all along.
Yes. And now we're asking them to let go of that.
When the client looks at them in the eye and says, I wish you would die.
My heart.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah.
Look at these Yelp reviews that people get.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, it's Yelp, right? Or Google review or Facebook review or
Yeah.
whatever. But on multiple times I have said, you make one person happy, they'll tell 10.
Right.
You piss off one person, they will tell the world.
Right.
That's the power they have now.
Yeah.
So that perfect student, that perfect veterinarian, in a matter of 5 seconds, gets the biggest piece of humble pie.
Yeah.
And they don't know how to handle that because they have no emotional intelligence in order. How do I digest this?
Yeah.
What do I do with this? Do I blow up? Do I go sit in a cave and cry?
Yeah.
Do I, and heaven forbid, do I go out and get drunk?
Yeah.
Do I look at other ways to cope?
Right. So what do we do about this? Because hopefully with the work that you're doing, things might change. But for right now, we really are filled with a profession of people who experience a lot of these things that you're talking about. Perfectionism is really high. And that is something that I see that's so challenging. I had a mentee who, came to one of my remote meetings, and she stayed late to talk to me, and she was, really upset. She said, I'm having to undo all of the things that I needed to have to get through veterinary school. And I'm having to unlearn all of that. And it's really hard. So while the work you're doing will hopefully help change some of that, right now, we have these wonderful, amazing early career veterinarians. We want all of you. We need all of you. We're happy you're here. How do we help support these people now?
Well, first thing I want to say is, as well as I do, veterinary medicine doesn't change easily, and it doesn't change quickly.
Yeah.
Right? During COVID, we had to pivot as a profession.
Yeah.
We proved we could do it.
Yeah.
Yes, there were casualties along the way, but we
Yeah.
proved we could do it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And the proof is in the stats. All you got to look at is revenue of clinics during COVID versus any other time. That proves that we were capable of doing it, right? So a fear I have is that I don't want to say it's going to fall on deaf ears, but it might. So what do we need to do now for these early career vets? We need to do as much as we can, because we lose 38% of them within 5 to 10 years.
Lose them, they leave the profession.
Gone. Home Depot.
Yep.
U.S. Postal Service.
Yeah.
Just stuff that just doesn't take it. And it just reminds me. It reminds me of Animal House, where he's like, he's like telling them they're getting kicked out. And Jim Belushi's like, shit, 6 years of college down the drain. That is the secret sauce that hopefully people like you, Peter Weinstein, the Hawk, other people, we can all get together and start coming up with ways to help them. I don't say we handhold them through the technical side. I say you handhold them through the emotional side. And it's so easy as a mentor to say, oh, thank God I didn't screw that up. Oh, they have a hard talk to do with that client. As a mentor, you need to almost buck up and pick up the phone and talk to the client for them. And it's,
That's an interesting thing. Have you done that for a mentee before?
I have.
A mentee made a mistake
and I put my ass on the line for them. I did.
Can you tell us about that story?
It was a simple spay. And at the time that we didn't have PTT in-house before, we did space. And the dog ended up having von Willebrand's, so PTT wouldn't have picked it up. Right? But the dog bled out. They ended up in the emergency clinic. The dog bled out, and of course the intern that took the case, first year out, finger pointed, blamed the veterinarian, which is a big no-no. Huge no-no. But it's very easy to just, it was their fault, right? And that all comes from leadership, by the way, from the top,
That's
like
cultural.
Washington, D.C. down. That's the way we are now.
Yeah.
Finger pointing is the easiest way to go. So the next morning, obviously the new vet was absolute distraught.
Devastated,
Devastated. Knife to the heart, right? Like,
Yep.
And that's human. That is human.
100%.
And and so I walked in, I saw what was going on with her. She told me everything that went on, and I'm like, I got this. I go, but I got this one. But you need to sit there and listen. And I picked up the phone, kind of told a little fib, oh, she's not in today, but I heard what was going on. And we went over the case together. I said, well, we still have blood. I said, let's send it off, see if we can figure out what happened. Thank God it had von Willebrand's because right? Because you could have put 30 ligatures on this dog. It still would have, you probably see an outcome. And I was able to talk the client off the ledge. But she learned right there and then that number one, there's nothing wrong to say I'm sorry. That doesn't mean you're guilty. Number two, you do everything you can to try to ease as much as they can. You're never going to be able to take the pain away, right? Because they came in for a routine spay. And no spay is routine. Whoever tells you a spay is routine, they obviously have not done enough spays.
That's right.
And then, and from that point on, she became the most beloved veterinarian at our clinic.
It makes me teary hearing this. Genuinely, I love this story so much, and I don't mean to put you in the hot seat and ask you to share such a hard story to be sad. I share it because there are always so many pearls in stories like this. The story of resiliency, the story of how we are able to connect with our clients, the amazing gift you gave to her as a mentor, and for her to be able to watch you do that and to really internalize that and to see if I pick up the phone and I say I'm sorry, because I am, this is a shitty thing that happened to your family and to your pet, and we're not accepting blame and we're not admitting guilt, and to see you model that, and then for her to go on to become this beloved veterinarian who overcame that, I think is just such a gift. Buff, who was my first mentor, who's on another episode, I don't remember him ever picking up the phone like that for me, but what I do remember is standing in treatment, holding on to a phone and role-playing with him before I picked up the phone to make a phone call, and practicing that awkward, scary language with him, before I picked up the phone, because while the medicine is challenging and the technical things are challenging, the communication piece is where we need the most support. Like, just like what you were saying, if there's any place we need our hands held, it's in that. And I just think that's such an important lesson. And thank you for sharing that.
But the biggest thing you just said, you picked up the phone.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, and
you can't
even
hide.
Today,
you pick up the phone.
You have to pick up the phone, and some of my best mentors have been the ones to tell me that. I can do this, or you can send an email, but I really suggest you pick up the phone.
Right.
You know, and it's hard and it's
well,
awkward.
there are certain things that can be emailed, like
of
blood
course,
results.
100%. Don't spend all your time on the phone.
Right.
Email things like that.
Well, like blood work. Explain the blood work on an email.
Do that in an email.
Don't leave a voicemail, because they'll call you 3 minutes later without listening to the voicemail.
That's right, 100%.
Right? But there are certain things that immediately need to be addressed.
Yes.
And I hate to say, but it's cover your ass medicine, you know, especially in California with the state board. And I make sure I make that very clear as well to my mentees, that like in California, the state board looks for anything and everything. So it's almost like cover your butt type stuff.
There is. And there's so much fear about the state board, though. And I would say, like, I've had one board complaint in 21 years, and that was because I poorly communicated.
I completely avoided that altogether.
See? But
God.
So, yes, the board complaints are a real concern, but they're not nearly as big as we make them out to be.
But when you go through one,
that's right.
That's like saying, you know, like the IRS coming after you.
Right.
It's not that big deal. Yeah, that one time will make you realize.
I don't want to minimize it. I'm just saying that the reason so many of us have never had them or only had one is because of the communication piece. It's not just about how you're practicing medicine, but board complaints go back to what?
Okay, I'm going to flip this.
Okay.
Let's go back to when that board complaint came in.
Yeah.
How did you feel?
Oh, God, I had so many emotions. I was mad. I was really angry because I just thought I nailed that communication, and I knew that what happened was not my fault. I knew that with every cell in my being, and so I was really mad, and then I just was sort of sad, and it was a roller coaster.
Okay, so emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
Question.
Yeah.
How did you control that?
Well, I sought help from my mentor. And my first board complaint came probably, my first and only board complaint. It was probably 6 or 7 years ago. It was not that long ago. And so I was a seasoned practitioner by the time that happened. And still, I went into the office of my mentor, who I'd worked for many years, and I just sat down with him and I said, look what I just got. And I think I might have been crying. I was pretty upset. And we had a conversation. And so I didn't respond to the client right away. So really, I just had a conversation with my mentor. That was the thing that I needed.
Did he give you a lack of self-worth?
Did he?
No. Did the board complaint give you a lack of self-worth?
No. No.
You still believed in yourself?
Oh, yeah. No. Yeah. I was very confident at that point. I also had a little more of an innate sense of confidence, similar to what you described when you first came out of veterinary school. I'm not sure exactly where that came from, but
it came from your pre-veterinary experiences.
Yeah. So no, it did not.
Right, because it caused a bunch of emotional exhaustion.
It was emotionally exhausting. It was
right, yes. And what a lot of people don't understand is when they think of burnout, they just think of emotional exhaustion.
Yeah,
but basically, it's 3 parts. It's emotional exhaustion, it's a lack of self-worth, and it's also depolarization, where you basically you go home and you just sit on the couch in bed. You don't talk to anybody. You don't talk to your partner, your spouse, your friends, your congregation, you name it. So that's how you avoided it, because that would have burned out a lot of people. Yeah. Because especially new career veterinarians, emotionally, because of their perfectionism or whatever, they're trying to control their emotions, get those under control, emotional exhaustion. Immediately the imposter syndrome comes back, and they're scared to death about doing anything because they think it's going to end up in a board complaint. Mm-hmm. And then also they're not going to want to talk to anybody about it. Right. Those 3 parts, boom, burnout. So there are so many things that we need to help these early career vets with understanding, so you can break up that triad. Mm-hmm. The emotions, you can't. We're human. Yeah. We have emotions. But the most important thing we need to do is make sure that, hey, this happens to everybody. This happens to the best of them.
Yes.
You know, you are phenomenal at what you do.
Yeah.
You are well ahead of everyone else in your class. You know, anything you can say to make sure they don't have a lack of self-worth.
Yep.
And you make sure they're doing something to do their mindfulness. I don't care if you give them the day off, let them go walk in the hills, go down to the beach, go to church, go out to eat with their girlfriends or boyfriends or whatever.
Yeah.
But you got to break that triad.
Yes. And those are simple things. And I think, you know, sometimes we sort of downplay the importance of those simple things. And I'm hearing so much from you around like community and connection. And I think we as mentors can really help play a really pivotal role in providing a space for community. And that's something actionable that early career vets can do, because I don't want people to get discouraged and think, what do I do with all of this information? And these are like real actionable things.
Right. Going into TikTok groups, Facebook groups, Instagram groups, they all have their part, but that's not what I mean by getting out there.
That's right.
Because you will go home, get on your phone, your iPad, your computer, and just, you know, type back and forth on a Facebook.
Yes.
You need to get out, and you need, it's okay to vent. Go to the gym, beat the crap out of a boxing bag. Yeah. Do something that, you know, will start, over time it will go away. Mm-hmm. Yep. How long did it take you to get over that, do you think? Because you were already seasoned, though. Yeah,
I was. And it didn't take me too long, but it was drawn out because I had to come up with paperwork and I had to, you know, prove my case. And it was exhausting. You know, it was certainly weeks of involvement in trying to resolve this case.
So and that's the problem. So that's why it's like, that's why I always prepare my veterinarians from day one. It's like, you got to be careful, you know, and number one way to stop any complaint is communication.
Absolutely.
Communication, talking to people, be yourself.
Yes.
But if you're very introverted, you got to learn to become an extrovert, and that causes exhaustion. If you are not a people person at all, you know, people like, oh, I got into veterinary medicine because I hate people. Yeah. I hate to tell you, this is not the profession for you, because every four-legged animal has a two-legged checkbook. Yep. And then, you know, also use the communication amongst your staff. Yeah. Because the one thing my staff was always so phenomenal. My staff was amazing. But they were always, especially with my associates, the newer ones, they always knew the right thing to say. Like, oh yeah, that client was mean. Oh yeah, no, dude, that client, don't worry, you did nothing wrong. Oh, they have no, they're crazy. Yeah. Like, you know, the one, and of course it's always the ones that come in, this is my fur baby. That's a red flag. Yeah. I tell my mentees that, like, you know, but you know, they're the people that, like, when a client would get so upset because their 18-year-old German Shepherd passed away and thought you didn't do enough. At some point, you just got to sit back. Yeah. You got to digest it. Yeah. And then my staff was always perfect at making them laugh about the situation. It's not a funny situation, but laugh about, shit, I wish my German Shepherd lived past the age of 7, you know? Right. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's things you got to look at. And then also, you know, we sent condolence cards to every animal that passed. Yeah. And I made sure I signed every one. Yeah. And I had a very, very simple saying I put on every single condolence card was how blessed you were to have such a great companion.
Yeah, I love that.
Just like simple words like that.
Yeah.
They're like, holy cow.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? Because, yes, do we want our animals to live forever? Absolutely. Right. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen.
And people love that. It's so meaningful to them. You know, I'll get emails thanking me for the condolence note that the clinic sent. And aren't some of the most, like, thoughtful and you just, like, abundance of gifts that we receive after euthanasias? You know, that's when there's so much gratitude.
But I got a funny story.
Up. Oh, tell us a funny story.
We had a soft-coated Wheaten Terrier that passed away. And somehow or another, they fell through the cracks, and we didn't send them a condolence card. We got a bad Yelp review because we didn't send a condolence card.
Oh, wow. That is funny? I don't know. Interesting? Wow. Yeah.
It can
I mean,
come back and bite you.
Yeah, yeah.
But I mean, those
people
types
expect that, and it's
Right.
meaningful, and
like a simple thing. Also,
Yeah.
new career grads, if you're listening, the simplest thing is the second that dog is out of anesthesia, pick up the phone.
oh, you know
Call,
they're waiting.
text.
They're on pins and needles.
Nowadays,
waiting for you.
it's awesome. All the software we have, you can
Yeah,
text.
just text.
Hey, Puffy's all done. Everything went great.
Yep.
We'll call us in 2 hours. We'll give you an update.
Yep.
Just to get that,
Yes.
like, that's simple thing, and you don't even have to do it.
Yep.
Have your technicians do it.
Yep.
Have the receptionists do it.
Yep. Those small little things, but you know the clients are at home. They're waiting by the phone to hear about it.
But again, it's playing the game.
Yeah.
Right? It's a game. It's
Yeah.
and people are like, oh, I don't like it. Maybe I'll come up with a better term, but it's playing the game of veterinary medicine. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, and everyone has a different path,
Yeah.
but we all get to the same point.
Mm.
But the problem is I think where you come in is you make sure that path doesn't veer off to the right, like all the way over here,
Right.
and then all of a sudden you got to pull them back to the common path.
Yeah, I want to make sure that we get in with these early career veterinarians before they're led off in a bad direction, because they work so hard to get to where they are, and we need them so badly, and it's the best profession ever. And there are things that people like you and myself can offer early career vets to help make sure that they stay on a really good path and have successful careers. You know, maybe
Exactly.
not as joyful as you and I have had, as you've
Right.
said. Like, we are big cheerleaders for this profession.
Love this profession.
So what
Love.
we've had, like,
Love.
what do you love about it? We've had like really intense discussion. Like, what do you love about vet med? What do you get? You just got so excited.
I mean, keep it basic. Number one,
Yeah.
again, you can own a business, you can manage the business, and you can be part of the business. And it's your business, number one. That, to me, is a game changer for our profession. Unbelievable. Even though they come with humans, you do get to work with animals, right?
Yeah.
You get to work with animals.
Yeah.
Now, granted, we always joke about that 2.5-pound chihuahua that will take you down.
Yeah.
But I mean, how heart-filling is it to have an animal come into the clinic happy as hell that it's at the clinic,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or even better, how great is it to have a animal come in as a new client and the client says to you, man, my dog's never been so happy at a veterinary clinic.
Aw, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it feels so good.
And you got to take that, the 98% of clients that
Yeah.
absolutely will worship you, adore you,
Yeah.
be there, and you got to live off of that,
Yes.
right? Because that
Yes.
gives you the fulfillment you're looking for.
Mhm.
If you keep that 2% of clients that hate
Yeah.
you and will not be happy no matter what you do,
Yeah.
then you're going to hate the profession. You got to be able to find, and it does take time, but you will find other like-minded professionals that have the same vision, values, and ideals that you have.
Yeah.
The fact that that people don't understand that veterinarians, even though we do get a lot of bad press because that's usually what comes out online and stuff, the great majority of society holds us on a pillar compared to nursing.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
We have a 78% acceptance rate.
Mm.
The only one higher is nursing, and they're at 81.
Yeah.
I mean, firemen, policemen, teachers are sitting in the 40s.
Wow. Wow.
I'm not running into a burning building. I don't know if you are.
Right.
I'm not going to strap a gun and go out and, fight a war
Right.
because I don't have that type of courage. Yet we're looked at above that.
Yeah.
I mean, that is such a thing that you are a part of. You
Yeah.
are a part of a fraternity
Mm-hmm.
of people that are held in high regard.
Yeah.
How many times do you go to your doctor and they're like, oh, gosh, you went to vet school. I could never made it
Yep.
through vet school.
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Physicians say that all the time.
But, dentists don't.
Right. Well,
Chiropractors don't. but I mean, so why do I love the profession? Because we are in a profession that's held in such a high regard that 1% of the 1% of the 1% are doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's really special.
It is. And how can you not be excited to be part of that? And that's why I said, you know, it is that 2 to 5% of clients that make these early career vets want to leave. A question I wanted to ask you is, how do you handle people coming to you when their first job was an absolute nightmare? Like, they got through vet school, which is no easy feat. It is no easy feat. And the only people that understand what you go through in vet school is either you're like someone who went through it with you or someone who has already been through it. Like, the public doesn't understand. And, you know, I tell them, I'm like, oh, did you go to a semester school? They're like, yeah. And I go, so basically we took 25 semester hours a term, and where they were sitting at, what, 12 to 13? They're like, oh, double the work? Yes. And all of a sudden you get it. But how do you handle, like, when they have a very bad first job? Is it too late for them to come to you, or do you get them while they're in that?
No, we have a number of people who come to us and join the Ready Vet Go mentorship program after they've been out for a year. And a lot of them come not because they had horrible first year experiences, but because they realize that they're missing certain things, the things that we've talked about, and that adding those things to their repertoire of knowledge will help make them more successful in their professional journey. So things like connecting with clients, building trust, building up their emotional intelligence, being a leader in their practice. And, you know, because at the beginning, everybody's so worried about figuring out the computer system and understanding just the medicine and what do I do with all this medical knowledge. And so the learning curve
can we get
is
one
so
computer
steep.
system?
That's right.
Just one.
It would make everyone's life so much easier. So usually when I get early career vets who come to us after their first year out, it's for that reason. I do have people come, a number of them, who did have bad first year experiences, and it's heartbreaking. And I just feel so bad because nobody wants to take that first job and have it be terrible. You know, you work so hard and you get so excited for that first job, and to have it not go the way you wanted to is really disheartening. I do a mentee skills training course. It was adapted from the Western College of Veterinary Medicine in Saskatchewan in Canada. They developed this curriculum throughout the veterinary school, and I've adapted it into a small little mini course. I do it for the mentees in our program, and I also do it in a bunch of vet schools, because I think a lot of those negative first year experiences can be avoided, honestly. I think that, you know, when veterinarians leave their first job within the first year, they're saying it's because of lack of mentorship. And then you have the practice owner who says, but I was offering mentorship. And so I see it as a real mentor-mentee disconnect. And I think some of the disconnect can be prevented by having conversations, maybe mentorship agreements, having both parties say what mentorship means to them and what they're looking for, because mentorship is not a one-size-fits-all situation. So I think
you just put a light bulb in my head.
Ooh, I'm so glad. I do want to hear about it. But I think a lot of those things can be avoided. And so you know, if I can't get them before they have that experience and they've had a negative experience and then they come to us, I'm so grateful that they're with us so that we can help them prevent that from happening again. Take some mentee skills, learn how to be self-directed learners, learn how to advocate for themselves, find the mentorship that they need and deserve, and then rebuild them up by being positive and joyful and cheerleaders and reminding them why they came into this profession. I encourage everybody to keep track of their wins, because although 98% of our clients adore us, it's human nature. We're going to remember that 2%.
And by wins, you mean the emails, the cards.
The tiny.
The
small
thank yous.
Wins. The thank yous. Did I see a puppy today? Did I remember the vaccine protocol? Did I get through my suture pattern 1 minute more quickly than I did yesterday? Small things. Did I, engage with a, senior RVT who I could learn from? Did I, get respect from a client? These small, teeny, tiny wins that are not just about medicine.
Correct.
And write them down and then look back at them. I mean, I have boxes of thank you letters from clients and staff that I have just accumulated over the years. And I am not above saying that, when I'm having a bad day, I will pull those out because those lift me up. And then I get to remember, oh, Fluffy from, 2010. And I loved that client.
Well,
and those small wins are things that you need to keep.
Just so you know, in my new office now, at my podcast studio, I had a cardboard box. Now it's because one of my RVTs works with me now, Mallory, love her to death. She's very OCD. They're in a little
As
nice
RVTs
plastic
often
box.
are.
Yeah, but a nice little. But they're all the wins that I got over 33 years.
That she kept for you?
No, I kept.
You kept. Okay.
I kept. I keep all that stuff
Yeah.
because you're absolutely
Yeah,
right.
keep that stuff.
Light bulb.
Yeah, tell me your light bulb.
Anyone ever approach you and say, I want to learn how to become a better mentor?
All the time. You know what happens more, though, than that? Here's what happens more than I want to become a mentor. Here's what I get a lot. And we can brainstorm on how to navigate this. I get practice owners and corporate leaders who say, I have an associate veterinarian who I want to be a mentor to early career vets, and they need help being a better mentor. So being asked more than, how do I become a better mentor? I often have people saying, I want my associates to become better mentors. And that is different.
Because they're honest with themselves. They know that they can't be a mentor, or they already been mentoring for 20 some odd years. But that, I think that is something that even if you've only been out a year and a half, you can still be a mentor.
Oh, absolutely.
Because it's so fresh in your mind.
Yeah.
You remember the first day of practice. You remember the first client that hung up on you. You remember, the first client that hugged you crying in thanks. Like,
so much happens in that first year.
See one, do one, teach one.
Yes.
Right?
I love seeing veterinarians right at that first year mark. And we say, just take a deep breath and pause. Often they're coming with some challenge and they think, I'm just not getting it. And that's when I say, let's just stop and reflect on the entire year and look at where you were and how far you have come. And you are 100% in a position to be a mentor now for somebody else.
I haven't come across any, but are there any veterinary continuing education conferences just based on the non-technical?
Oh, that is a really interesting question. There's the AVMA Veterinary Leadership Conference, and I think that was a great one. I've done some speaking at that conference that is completely non-technical. There might be others, but the Veterinary Leadership Conference is the one that I think of that is really around the non-technical things.
But maybe
and then,
we
of
should
course,
have one as a profession.
I think is that your light bulb? I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. We have our veterinary mentorship book coming out, and there's so many amazing topics in there. They're all about how mentors can become better support and mentors for mentees. So like your chapter on emotional intelligence, we have psychological safety, we have leadership, we have building out a clinical skills program.
And
so,
just to make it clear to all the listeners, psychological safety, again, is toxicity of the workplace. Right? I think that is something, again, that forget even in vet school. Why aren't we teaching everybody like the non-technical stuff?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why I developed Ready Vet Go. Ready Vet Go is 100% founded in the non-technical skills. Now, our program is not just non-technical because as early career vets, there's always going to be questions about medicine and technical.
It's not Cushing's.
We might leave veterinary school thinking we're going to diagnose Cushing's all the time, and really we're looking at dental disease and anal glands and ear infections. Exactly. And that's the stuff we end up talking about a lot because what do you do when somebody comes in with just diarrhea for a day?
Exactly.
It's not always going to be lymphoma. So we definitely talk about medicine and technical things, but that is really why I developed Ready Vet Go, was so that early career veterinarians could have a place to go to talk about the non-technical things, and so that practices could have a program to enroll their associates in, because who has time in the clinic to dive into these things every day? Clinics are busy.
Again, very few want to.
Many people do not want to, and that is something that I realized after so many years of being in practice and being a mentor is, I think part of the reason why I really love it so much is because these are the things that I really enjoy talking about. I like taking the time talking about how to chat with clients. I like talking about the medicine, and I love medicine, and I'm good at it, but I feel like there's lots of other people who are also, really good at that too. This is something that I feel like I enjoy doing.
Well, you made it very clear that you are a people person. You are a people person.
I am, and I went into veterinary medicine because of people. I went into vet med because I loved our family veterinarian. I
went into vet med also because I hated ours.
Oh, right.
He was a quack. He was a quack. My dog lived with tapeworms for 7 years.
Oh, no. See, there are that reminds me of, when people come to me and they say, I want to be a mentor for Ready Vet Go, or I just want to be a mentor in general. There's two camps. I want to go into veterinary medicine, or I want to be a mentor either because I had a terrible first mentorship experience or because I had an amazing first mentorship experience. And it sounds like you and I had that with our family veterinarians.
Well, I just want to say what you're doing for the profession is near and dear to my heart. So you have a cheerleader in me.
Yeah.
I think your program is one that really needs to be brought to the forefront. And I really also believe that as a profession, we really need to do more at these conferences than talk about FIP and liver disease and heart disease. Like, they're requiring us in California to take antimicrobial resistance classes before we can renew our license. Maybe we need to start working on the non-technical.
Well, I think you're in a position to potentially be doing that. I'd love to do it with you. I'm also a big fan of what you're doing. And honestly, that's what brought us together. You and I didn't know each other before that.
I was more fired up, though, the first time you met me.
You were fired up.
I was pissed.
You were, and you channeled that anger into something that is really going to impart a lot of positive change, I think, for this profession. And I
showed emotional intelligence.
You sure did.
Yeah.
And I'm so grateful that we were brought together. And I'm so grateful that you took the time to come and share all of this experience with us, because I know I got a lot out of it. And I know that the listeners really are as well. So I just can't thank you enough for being here.
Anytime.
Thank you.
For you.
And thank you so much for joining. This has been Ready Vet Go, the podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and follow and watch again for more tips. And we'll see you on the next Ready Vet Go podcast.
Later.